Hello and welcome back to MMA Crypt Fighting Talk. For today's show, we'll be going 4 rounds of action featuring NSAC, no longer allowed TRT exemptions, Nate Diaz wants out of the UFC, TUF China Finale, our fighter and fight of the night. Then we'll finish the show with King Mo versus Quinton Jackson. Okay, let's find out who will be joining me on today's show. We have a couple of regulars in Brian Hunt and Greg Marshall. Say hello to our listeners, guys.
Hello, listeners.
And hello from me too.
Okay, let's get things started with round one, guys. In recent news, the Nevada State Athletic Commission has decided to ban TRT exemptions in combat sports. That includes boxing and mixed martial arts. Now, as we know, guys, Nevada is the home of the UFC, and where the UFC holds major events. So this is pretty big news for the UFC at this moment in time. I'm pretty sure Dana White is pretty happy too, even though he did lose his UFC 173 main event. But we'll get to that in just a minute, guys. Greg, what did you make of the TRT ban by the NSAC?
Great news. It's been a long time coming. It's pretty widely accepted that it needed to be eliminated from the sport, and it took them a long time to get there, but finally they've got there. The only issue with it now is it makes no, for guys who were using TRT, it doesn't really have any effect on them at all. They'll still be able to use it as long as they get within the accepted levels for their piss test. So it doesn't really affect them too much. Guys like Vitor it will affect, because he'll still likely be tested leading into fights anyway, given his past history. But some of the other guys, that won't have any issue on them at all. So they need to start looking wider and bringing in random testing, but that's a long way away, I think.
Well, Brian, what's your take on the TRT ban by the NSAC?
About fucking time. Well, I mean, when it started and you see guys like Kendo and Randy do it, you can kind of say, well, yeah, they're old fucks. They're probably getting a little low in the testosterone. But as soon as I saw Nate Marquardt doing it, and then Todd Duffy doing it, it's like, no, it's being abused. It was instantly being abused as soon as you see guys like that doing it. Nate's cover of Muscle and Fitness or something like that, and he's needing TRT, bullshit. It was complete bullshit. And it was such a obvious way to cheat. I'm not sure if Greg's right though. If they're going to be able to still use it, because it's going to show synthetic testosterone. They can still cycle off of it just like a regular steroid, and as long as they're clean by the time the piss test comes, then so be it. It's still going to, but at least now it's going to be cheating, and before it wasn't. We just kind of look the other way. Yeah, it's TRT. They're okay. Well, now they're officially going to be cheating, and they can officially be suspended, and we can officially move on from this shit. But it's just stage one, and there needs to be a stage 2, 3, and 4. And as Greg said, random testing. It has to evolve to random testing.
Well, you mentioned Todd Duffy there. What the fuck does Todd Duffy need TRT for?
Yeah.
Now, I know about steroids, right? They make your testosterone go low, so what, was they like supplying him with the fucking testosterone to build it back up? Did they not even ask, like, why? Because he was 24 or something on his first run in the UFC. And I think he's 28 now. It's like, why the fuck would a 24-year-old man need TRT? Really? Like, did no one even look into this and think, look at the size of the fucker, this cunt's on steroids, you know?
They did though. They did look into it, and his doctor said he had hypogonadism. Like every single one of these guys has claimed they've got. Everyone who's on TRT claims they've got hypogonadism.
What's this?
It's something that affects something like 0.03% of men.
Fucking no.
But in the UFC, it affects about 13% of men. It's ridiculous. It's a doctor's clearly been given money to say that they've got this. It's as simple as that.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It really is. It's like, I don't know the effects of TRT and what it actually does. Obviously, I wouldn't say it's as bad as steroids, you know. It just probably gives you a bit of a pick-me-up in the gym. and obviously the fighters' wives must be pretty happy. But apart from that, what do you know what the effects TRT has in benefit a fighter there, Greg? Because
Well,
I know the people like Dan Henderson, he looked pretty good when he was on it, and Belfort, obviously, look at fucking the size of him now. But, what effects does it actually, advantages does it actually have?
well, it helps you train longer and harder, for one. That's an advantage in itself. And I read something today basically saying that testosterone is not just a steroid, it is the steroid. So that says it in itself. It gives you everything you need to know in that one statement.
Well, apparently Vitor Belfort, he needs 90 days off the TRT, and as a result, he's been removed from the UFC 173 main event for the middleweight title against Chris Weidman. Now, in steps Lyoto Machida. Brian, what do you make of the new main event between Lyoto Machida and Chris Weidman?
I'm okay with it. I agree with pulling him off, and I don't think it's a bash Vitor thing. He's had his legitimate reasons or illegitimate reasons, whatever his reasons were to be on TRT. He had the okay to do it, and he is going to need to take 3 months to figure out how to train without the stuff. It's going to be a huge change for him, but that also shows you it's doing a lot. If it was not a big deal, maybe a week you'd be fine off of it. So it is a big deal, and he does need the time off. I don't know if Machida is the best person. It's kind of thin in that division right now, but if he's willing to step in and go, it's kind of a fill-in fight. He's got decent notice. I'm okay with it. I'm not going to debate who's more deserving. He didn't look great in his last fight, but he's filling in. So if he's willing to step in on a little bit of a short notice, more power to him. Let's keep the event and keep going.
Well, straight away, there was an announcement about, 24 hours before, and it was like TRT banned in Nevada, and automatically, as soon as it was announced that Belfort won't be fighting, all the fans were like, chicken shit, pussy, he's scared now, he ain't got his TRT behind him. And then fucking Belfort had to come out and say, no, I was pulled from the card. And obviously that's because of the 90-day thing. Where do you think he goes from here now, though, Brian? Do you actually think he'll get a title shot? Because it is, well, basically, like Alistair Overeem, we're going to see if it was, the juice. Well, Alistair Overeem was on the steroids, and obviously we seen what happened when he wasn't taking the stuff. He come over to the UFC, he was tested. Now we're going to really see if that was the real Vitor Belfort or it was the TRT. So do you actually think he can actually position himself back in line for a title shot? Because he's obviously going to have another fight now.
No, I don't think so. I think he does. I think he should get the winner. He did everything within the rules. While the rules were shit, and I was screaming louder than anybody how shitty the rules are, he was within the rule. So it wouldn't be fair to him to jack him off of it. To jack him off. Wow. Too much testosterone.
You want to jack him off?
It wouldn't be fair to, God, I can't even say yank him off. I can't say anything now.
Remove him.
Remove him. It would not be fair to remove him from title contention for following the rules. And that's what he was doing. So I'm a huge proponent against TRT, but he was legal doing so. So he's going to need, and he's going to look different. I mean, remember how soft Overeem looked in his first fight back? I mean, that was pathetic looking. I mean, he was a completely changed person. Oh, yeah, less horse meat or some shit like that.
He still does, Brian. He still looks a little softer on the edges.
He does. He looked better this last showing, as far as a little bit more muscle, everything getting a little bit tighter again. But when he weighed in for Brock, I mean, it's like, holy crap, what are you, like 6%, 8% body fat? Now he's 15% body fat. I mean, he's probably quadrupled his body fat percentage. But yeah, Vitor has done nothing wrong. He has done nothing wrong. So he should not be removed. As much as I hate TRT, Vitor has done nothing wrong. So he shouldn't be punished for it.
Well, Greg, what's your take on the new main event between Chris Weidman and Lyoto Machida?
I think it was the only option. There was no other fight that was obvious to step in.
You think it's a better fight?
I don't think it's a better fight because I think Vitor might have won the other fight. I can't see Machida winning. He's similar to Anderson Silva in many ways, but not as good. So I don't see Weidman having too many issues with him. But he's the obvious choice to step up. There's no other guy that I can think of that would have been a good good fit at that time anyway.
Well, the same question I threw at Brian. Where do you think Vitor goes from here, Greg?
Much the same as Brian. He'll be next. He's already earned his title shot. Like Brian said, he's not broken any rules. He's not done anything wrong. He's fought within the rules as they were set. So he's already earned his title shot. He obviously was going to find issue for a while coming off the TRT. That's all quite clear. But where he goes from there, his training's obviously going to have to be toned down a lot, because he won't be able to train as hard, and then to get himself to a similar level testosterone wise, from what I've been reading, you need more rest in between sessions, so he won't be able to train as often as he wants either.
That's what I mean, Greg. He's going to have 6 months until he can actually fight Chris Weidman. That's a long time for all that TRT to get out of his system. So like I said to Brian, we're going to really see. He might soften out. He can have a real poor showing, or actually just, know he's not up to the task himself and might actually just drop out the fight. Or what about if Machida? Because Machida, he's no easy task. What about if Chris Weidman gets injured and he has to sit out for a year? Because we've seen this with Rashad Evans. I don't know if you remember, a long time ago. Rashad had to sit out, and then Jones got involved and whatnot, and then Jones became the champ. That could happen to Vitor, and if it does, he could literally not even get a title shot. We've seen it with Dan Henson recently too. Dan Henson, when the 151 card got scrapped.
Anything can happen. But at this moment, he's definitely next in line. And if everything stays as it is, then he deserves his shot. If I was Vitor, I'd be getting in contact with Randy, because Randy said that he never used TRT once, and he kept his testosterone up using natural methods. I would be looking to find out exactly how you do that.
Well, you just go to a good GP, don't you? A good doctor, you know.
You could do, but at least Randy's been there as a fighter.
Randy's just an horny old goat, that's what it is.
Well.
It's all those women what he's around keeping his fucking testosterone up.
You could be right.
There was a story. I saw an interview with Randy a while back. It's hard to find, but I hate to throw this out there. I'm 95% sure he admitted to doing HGH in this interview before HGH was this big known thing. And I can't remember who he was interviewing or talking about, but he was doing human growth hormone at one point in time. And I think it was on ESPN. I think it was an ESPN radio or TV interview where he was talking about it, and he never mentioned it again after that. So I don't know if Randy was completely clean either, to be honest.
The only reason I said that's because I've seen an interview again with him when they were asking him about TRT and whatever, and he'd said that he never felt the need to do it ever because he had other natural ways of doing it.
I did see that. I did see him say that.
But like you say, there is obviously stuff around that give you the idea he's not been entirely
innocent. Maybe he considers HGH a natural means. I don't know.
Well, maybe.
Okay, let's take things over to round 2. Possibly the start of unhappy fighters on the UFC roster. Coming on the back of Gilbert Melendez signing a new UFC contract, Nate Diaz, he made a tweet the other day. He asked Dana White and the UFC for his contract release. I'm assuming this is because of Gilbert Melendez. Brian, what do you make of Nate Diaz asking for a contract release by the UFC?
The Diaz brother bitching. Shocking. I give it no attention. Here's your contract, fight. When you're done, go away. There's more drama than punches being thrown from these guys, and they throw a lot of fucking punches. So no, I don't give a shit. I mean, in all fairness, Diaz has a very legitimate right to bitch. I mean, he really does, because the whole lightweight division does. They're getting screwed when guys like Frank Mir and Josh Burnett are making so much more money than the top 10 guys in the lightweight division. Yeah, they have a legit bitch, but it's just another bitch from Diaz. So no, I don't care. I mean, I just fill out your contract and go away.
Well, Greg, what do you make of Nate Diaz asking for his release from the UFC?
He's obviously just trying to stir the pot, like a Diaz always tries to do. Like Brian says, he has got a legitimate reason. He gets 15,000 a fight, which is just ridiculous money for who he is. And when he's seen guys like Melendez saying, right, I'm going to go sign with Bellator, and then he gets a huge offer, the TUF gig and everything like that, he's obviously jealous at what he sees, and he's just trying to make a little point, which I can kind of understand. But like Brian says, with it being a Diaz, it holds less water because they just whine and moan about everything. The best thing he could do is get out there, win a fight, and ask to renegotiate his contract. Now he might get told no, wait till your contract's run out, but that's all he can do. Putting a silly little childish tweet out there is not going to help him in any way.
Well, this is different though, because Gilbert Melendez, he was at the end of his contract. Nate Diaz isn't. He's asking for his release. You can't, it's totally different. He's coming off, one win in 3 fights. You can't start lobbying for a new contract. 15,000 you mentioned, that's what he made in his last fight to show against Gray Maynard. Yeah, that is pretty low. Personally, I think they could possibly double that to 30,000 because he is a big name. And let's not forget, he did challenge Benson Henderson for the title not too long ago. So being on 15,000 is a little low for me. And whenever you've seen Nate Diaz on the undercard, I've not seen him on the undercard for a while, I don't think. Could be wrong, but he's certainly not an undercard fighter, that's for sure.
He's a draw.
Now, what it is, though, is he needs to be careful because, let's be honest, the UFC don't really need him. And what they'll do, they'll keep him right now because they won't release him to Bellator right now because Bellator can make a name off him right now. He's coming off a good win over Gray Maynard. If Bellator got their hands on him now, shit, he'll get more money, they'll match make him correct, and they can make quite a name off Nate Diaz. But if the UFC, they don't take too kindly to his comments and they decide, right, fuck you, Nate, they could match him, they could matchmake him really rough here and send him on a 3-fight losing streak or something, then release him. Bellator ain't going to want him on a 3-fight losing streak. Nobody's going to want him. He'll go to fucking Titan FC or something on 4,000 a fight. So he needs to be careful. While he does deserve more and he has a fair gripe, just win your fights and do what Gilbert Melendez did. Win your fights and see how much you're worth. Go to Bellator, check elsewhere, and ask for a pay rise off the UFC. You'll certainly earn one if you have a few wins. You can go in there and say, look, I won my last 3 fights. Former title contenders on there. I want 50,000 to show. And there's a good chance you might get it.
So I agree with you on that point, but I think if he had a 3-fight losing streak, Bellator would absolutely sign him still. Didn't stop him. Didn't stop him with Rampage. He's a draw, and they would bring him in because he's a draw.
Do you actually think that the UFC would release him right now, though, Greg? Because
not a chance.
You don't think they will?
No way. Again, one of the main reasons is he's a name. He's one of the few kind of named fighters out there who could probably sell a card. There's not many of them out there anymore. The Diaz's are both those type of guys. There's no way they release him. They'd maybe offer to let him go, but somebody'd need to buy his contract out, I would imagine. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Brian, do you see Nate Diaz getting his release?
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't even acknowledge the comment if I was the UFC.
I don't think they have.
I don't think they did.
No,
I asked his manager, Mike Colgan, for a reply. He said Nate Diaz isn't doing any interviews at the minute, so if he wants to make a lot of noise, then he's certainly not talking about it. So it's obviously a direct, message to the UFC. But why do it public? He could have sent his manager to contact them, unless he's letting it be known that the UFC, they're paying shit. They're not treating the fighters right. And if you back this up with all the past fighters now coming out and saying the UFC treat them unfairly, there wasn't a lot of weight to the story because it was oh, you're just jealous, your jealous ex-girlfriend or something. But you start getting fighters inside the company making tweets like that, that could be the reason he was doing it. Okay, let's move on over to round 3, guys, and the Ultimate Fighter China Finale. For this round, we will be giving our fighter and fight of the night for the TUF China Finale event. Greg, who's your fighter of the night?
Fighter of the night? Well, I've never seen the undercard, so I need to pick someone from the main card. I would go with Dong-Hyun Quinton, or however you say his name. He looked good. Hathaway put up a good fight, but Kim finished him, and he finished him brutally. easy contender for knockout of the year. Very easy. Best knockout I've seen this year so far.
Hey Greg, was that down to that shitty fight pass you didn't watch the undercard?
Yeah. I'm not
Hey
paying
Brian,
for that.
did you get the undercard fights over there where you are?
I didn't get any fights.
Well,
there was nothing available for me to watch on TV. So I'd like to thank the UFC for not allowing me to say who the fighter of the night was, because I have no freaking clue, because I am not willing to give my credit card information to a site that is not very secure. So thank you, UFC.
And they wonder why that they have all these illegal streams knocking around. They want to go chasing the illegal streams. Should have kept it to Facebook.
Yep. Facebook, or I mean, there's plenty of channels. They got Fox 1, they got Fox 2 over here. I don't have Fox 2 either, but at least they should have put it on something. And then, I mean, I didn't expect the prelims, but at least the main card I thought should be on something, and it wasn't. So.
Well, anyway, I did actually manage to watch the main card, and for my fight of the night, I have to go the same as Greg. I'm going to have to go with Dong-Hyun Kim. Now, John Hathaway has been out for a while, but fuck, this guy is, he's a stud. Strong, solid opponent, and no matter what way you look at it, long layoff, whatever, this guy, he's a top 5 guy. He's probably the best welterweight coming out of the UK, to be honest with you. And nobody to this day has managed to put him away. And Dong-Hyun Kim is the first guy to actually TKO him. So, definitely Dong-Hyun Kim for me. Okay, let's move on over to our fight of the night. Greg, what was your fight of the night?
Same fight. Again, I never seen the whole card, so it's difficult to pick a fight other than that one. The Hyoki Menjivar fight was a good fight as well. I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Mitrio and Jordan, it was a heavyweight fight. 2 guys just standing in front of each other, punching until one of them won. And the other fight that I seen, the TUF Finale, it was a good fight, but the 2 of them were not very skilled at all, to be perfectly honest. There's no way any of them will ever face somebody in the UFC of any ranking whatsoever. They'll fight in that on regional shows over there all the time. But yeah, the fight of the night, Kim Hathaway. Hathaway, considering he hadn't had a fight for over 18 months, looked impressive. I thought he won the second round, to be honest. I thought Hathaway won the second round. He lost the first round, got knocked down, came back, and he was battling well towards the end of the first round as well. Kim, again, the third round, Hathaway started quite strong, and it was just a brutal elbow that finished him. But yeah, I thought it was a great fight. Hathaway's got some chin. He can take a punch and keep going.
Well, for me, I've got to go Hatsu Hyoki versus Ivan Menjivar. Now, this was a good back and forth fight. Both fighters always jostling for the position. And Menjivar, what a scrapper this dude is, He really is. And did you notice his elbow attacks during the fight? He was throwing elbows from all different angles, fucking different positions. This guy was just whipping the elbows out non-stop. And both fighters at the end, they was exhausted, but, these guys give it everything they had. They really did. It was like none of them was resting on the ground. You couldn't rest on the ground. There was always looking for reversals, getting back to the feet, scrambles. Definitely fight of the night for me. Brian, is there any point in asking you?
I'd like to thank the UFC for not making this event available for me to watch again.
Scrap the fight
I
pass.
completely disagree with both of you. I have absolutely nothing to base that off of, but I disagree with both of you. So.
Are we boycotting the fight pass here?
I'm still on the fence, to be honest. I like the library aspect of it, but I don't like events being on it. I really don't. I think
No.
I should be able to see the main event, the main fights. So
I think replays, Brian. That's what I think. Replays should be on there. Not the undercard fights. Yeah, put the Ultimate Fighter Australia versus Canada. Put the replays on. Put some old fucking Pride fights. But do not put the undercard fights. Don't put the undercard fights in there. Don't even attempt to put the fucking Ultimate Fighter on there. Okay, let's move on over to round 4 and our final round. Quinton Jackson versus King Mo. Now, both these fighters were victorious at Bellator 110, and both will move on to the Season 10 Light Heavyweight Tournament Final. There was a brief face-off in the cage where Mo and Rampage got into each other's faces and had a few words for each other. Apparently, there was rumours of that being pre-planned and fake. Brian, do you believe that was pre-planned and fake?
I thought it was just training for the wrestling stuff. It looked very staged. I mean, it just did not look real, did not look natural. But Rampage hasn't been natural in a cage in a long time with that stupid howling. God. I mean, oh my God. I mean, it's really bad. It's really corny. I'm like, okay.
It's Rampage for real.
I'm sorry, but the howling walking out, and I'm just, okay, sure. Okay, I'm 12 again, I guess. Ooh,
well,
he's bad.
Well, you mentioned he's not been real in the cage for a while. Like, did you notice his weigh-ins with Christian and Pumbu, where he walked up to him? He said that he's going to retire me, and he squared up to him, Pumbu threatening him.
Yeah, I mean, just...
It looked fake to me. That looked fake too.
He might have been upset about that, because he's all about the cred and the rep, and if the guy didn't give him the respect, that might have been legit. I mean, he was pretty shitty to the guy after he knocked him out, too. It was pretty classy. But I don't know. It's a hard fight to get excited for me.
You see, I'm starting to think that it wasn't fake. I believe it was not fake between King Mo and Quinton, mainly because I had a little background knowledge on that, because I was in talk with King Mo's manager about 3 days before the fight. I passed on the interview of Quinton Jackson where he said half the reason he went to Bellator was because he could fight King Mo. And I thought these two were friends, so I let his manager know. And his manager was like, what? He said, what? I said, yeah, I'll tag you in it. And I tagged him in it. He wasn't happy. He was like, fuck him too then. And then King Mo started posting it all over his Twitter. He seemed pissed off. Now, if you watch previous interviews with King Mo, whenever Quinton Jackson was brought up, he was always respectful. They sort of made friends. They're both sponsored by MMA Elite, and they both sort of got along well. And King Mo didn't take too kindly to the Quinton Jackson questions. But they seemed genuinely hurt. They seemed genuinely pissed off that Quinton Jackson said that. It was like, if you looked at King Mo's face and during the scuffle, he looked like he was damn near about to cry. He did. And what it is, I think the fakeness is coming from Quinton Jackson. I think he's really trying to play that tough guy act. And if you watched him in the UFC, he was always laughing and joking and clowning around. He wasn't really trying to play the tough guy act a lot. He was always laid back. You said anything to him, he's like, oh yeah, whatever, we'll see. But really, since he went to Bellator, and especially at Bellator 110 the other night, he's trying to play his tough guy. He's threatening his opponent when his opponent's knocked out, talking the shit to him. Well, I won't say threatening him, but he was talking the shit to him. And that's not what Quinton used to do. Not from what I remember anyway. So, well, anyway, Craig, what do you make of King Mo versus Quinton Jackson? Do you like the fight? And do you think that the post-fight little scuffle was staged?
I think it was staged to some extent. Obviously, if you get two guys to go in the ring after they've both won a fight, then it's staged. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to admit it's staged or not, that's staged. The guy from the Mohegan Sun Authority knew about this beforehand. He didn't know it was going to be Rampage and Mo that were going to be in the ring, but he knew there was going to be two guys face off in the ring. So it's staged. Whether they like it or not, that's a staged act. The fight itself, Mo Rampage, yeah, Rampage will beat him easily. Mo looked terrible. He didn't look like he's got anything for Rampage at all, and that's kind of sad because Rampage is a shadow of what he used to be. But he's still, by and far, a far better fighter than King Mo. So no, I'm not excited for the fight. And as for Rampage, like Brian said, that bit at the end of the fight, that was completely classless. How you can knock somebody out and then stand over him shouting and cussing at him is just That's just not what you want to see, regardless of what it is. But again, I think it's maybe a bit of an act. He's trying to play in this big, crazy hard man act just now. Even prior to the fight, the Bellator showed you a backstage bit of Rampage with him howling for 45 seconds in the changing room. What the fuck is the point of that? It's just, could you make it look any more put on? Does he really just sit in his changing room and howl for 45 seconds? No, he doesn't. Nobody does that. It's just a completely put on act, but they've wanted to make it look like this guy's crazy and everything. And I've seen an interview later on after the fight as well, when he was getting interviewed by Sherdog, and the guy, he starts having a go at the guy, saying, I'm a fucking werewolf, I'm a fucking werewolf. You don't think it's real? I'm a fucking werewolf, I'm a real werewolf, I'm a fucking werewolf. Like, fucking, come on, man. just drop the act now. it was pathetic. And
Like
kind of
Twilight
feels
shit.
you kind of feel sorry for the guy that he feels he's got to do that shit.
Looks like he took those TNA wrestling classes serious.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like,
You imagine it, Quinton. I bet Stinger was telling him, "Look, you're a werewolf. Just pretend you're a werewolf, Quinton." Well, you mentioned that it was staged because they went into the cage, but like the yelling what Quinton was doing in King Mo, do you think that both the fighters put on the yelling and the shit they was talking to each other, or do you think maybe just it was Quinton because we just talked about him putting on an act recently? Do you believe that King Mo was putting on an act, or do you think he was generally pissed? Because he looked generally pissed to me.
Who knows? I would guess. My guess is no. These guys did appear to squash any beef they had before, and I think they're making the beef appear again just to try and hype the fight. Nothing else.
Okay, that's all from us today. If you have time, check out MMACrypt.com. We have tons of fantasy MMA competitions available and full of your latest mixed martial arts news from around the world. From MMA Crypt Fighting Talk, thank you for watching.